What if everything around you is just a really sophisticated video game? A world built on lines of code that will never glitch, but then you hear some distant static and suddenly the trees start to flicker. You look down and see your fingers you might be having a stroke. But what if you're not? What if there's another explanation? What if we're all living inside a simulation? Welcome to Life Noggin. Today, we're exploring whether we're all just NPCs in a vast digital world. First up, let's define our terms. What exactly is simulation theory? Basically, it says that the reality we experience is not the real reality, but rather a programmed construct. Think The Matrix meets Disneyland. This idea has been popularized by the philosopher Nick Bostrom, who argues that if we can simulate consciousness, then how do we know we're not already in one? Now, let's rewind the clock a little bit. It turns out that ideas of a simulated reality aren't new. Some ancient philosophers used cave drawings and shadows to explore the concept of reality being an illusion. In Plato's allegory of the cave, prisoners chained inside a cave see nothing but shadows projected onto a wall from objects behind them. They believe these shadows are real, until one prisoner escapes and realizes the shadows are just an illusion created by the firelight. Similarly, the Hindu tradition talks about an illusion called Maya. According to this idea, the material world is an illusion that hides the true nature of reality, which is actually spiritual. So the idea that we might be living in a simulation isn't exactly revolutionary. But modern theories add a new twist: code and computers. Let us fast forward to the present day, where we have all these scientific discoveries that seem to hint at a glitch in the matrix. One is the field of quantum mechanics. At the subatomic level, particles can be in two places at once, pass through solid objects, and behave like both a particle and a wave. When you observe these particles, though, they seem to collapse into a single state and behave more like we expect. Does this suggest that reality is just a bunch of ones and zeros until we look at it and force it to become real? Well, maybe. Another piece of evidence is the simulation argument itself. Bostrom argued that if we can create simulations that accurately mimic consciousness, then there must be some limit to how much energy or computation a universe can exert before it requires more energy than it has available. Since we know that cosmic rays have an energy limit, then perhaps the universe is no more energetic than a high-end video game. Okay, now let's talk about the Mandela effect. This is the phenomenon of people sharing a false memory of something that didn't happen. Perhaps most famous example is the belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, when in fact he was released in 1990 and lived until 2013. There are other instances like the logo on the front of a USMC uniform, which some people remember as having a globe inside the eagle's beak, although it never did. These shared false memories might be evidence that we're all tapping into the same simulation, although scientists are still trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. So between quantum physics, the simulation argument, and collective false memories, we've got a lot of glitches to support this theory. But wait, we can go deeper because we also have technology. Technology that allows us to manipulate reality, deepfakes, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality. Let's take a look at deepfakes, which are videos that use AI to superimpose someone's face onto someone else's body. Now you can upload your face onto an unsuspecting celebrity and fool a lot of people. And while deepfakes are still pretty easy to spot, the technology is improving rapidly. Eventually, they'll be indistinguishable from the real thing. What does this tell us about our own reality? Well, if we can fake reality convincingly enough to fool even ourselves, then why couldn't we have uploaded into a simulated version of the real world to begin with? Then there's AI, or artificial intelligence. We're developing programs that can learn, adapt, and even create their own art. What if this trend continues, and we eventually create an AI that's indistinguishable from a human mind? If we can create lifelike androids, then why could we have been created by a more advanced civilization that wanted to simulate their own digital afterlife? Finally, let's consider VR or virtual reality. This is a technology that puts you inside a computer-generated environment and lets you interact with it using your body movements. While VR headsets are still pretty clunky right now, eventually they should be able to simulate any environment imaginable. And if we can do this, then so could a more advanced civilization. Maybe we're all plugged into the matrix through brain-computer interfaces. Who knows? Each of these technologies brings us closer to the ability to simulate reality, and each one makes it seem more plausible that we're reliving in a simulation ourselves. The futurist and entrepreneur Elon Musk has even put his own high-profile weight behind the idea. He said that we have a 1 in billions chance of being in the base reality and a than 1 in 10 chance of being in a simulation. And if this all sounds far out to you, you're not alone. But before we dismiss simulation theory as just a fun movie plot, let's hear the case for it. First off, it makes sense. If a civilization reaches a certain level of technology, it's almost inevitable that they'll want to play God and create their own virtual worlds. After all, humans do it for fun. So if this happens, it stands to reason that some civilizations might simulate multiple versions of reality to populate with simulated minds. In fact, according to some estimates, there could be more simulated minds than real ones. Next, consider the patterns found in nature. Everything from galaxies to molecules seems to follow predictable rules that resemble computer code. Take DNA, for example, the molecule that carries the genetic instructions for all life on Earth. The four chemical bases that make up DNA could be compared to ones and zeros in a binary system. Some have even suggested that DNA is basically a hard drive storing information in a helicostructure. All this points to a reality that is built on a foundation of mathematics and code, kind of like a simulation. So the case for simulation theory is mostly we can't say for sure that we're living in a simulation, but we can argue that it's more likely than not. And honestly, if you think about it, the implications are huge. If we find out that we're living in a simulation, then it raises all sorts of ethical questions. If there are simulated beings out there, do they have the same rights as real-life humans? What about their right to free will and self-determination? Then there's religion. Many religions teach that we live in a material world that is ultimately under the control of a higher power. If we're all just Sims, does that mean God is the head programmer? Or maybe the Matrix is heaven and we're all just digital souls searching for our digital messiah? Okay, maybe those implications aren't so huge after all. Ultimately, simulation theory is just that, a theory. There's no hard evidence to support it, only a series of logical arguments and coincidences that seem to point in that direction. Plus, some scientists argue that we're probably overestimating how powerful technology can be. Others suggest that it might be a psychological coping mechanism, a way for us to deal with the chaos and randomness of the universe. Maybe we want to believe that there's some grand plan or programmer keeping track of things, even if there isn't one. So we're left with more questions than answers. Are we really living in a glitch? Maybe, maybe not. Does it really matter? Probably not. Whether or not we're in a simulation, we're still here experiencing whatever this is. And that's pretty cool. Speaking of which, we're pretty cool too. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button. And if you want to know more about simulation theory, we've got 2 more videos coming up. Just click like and subscribe to ensure you don't miss them. As always, this has been Sager Facts. Don't forget to keep on thinking.